Hey, hello. Leaders and believers, welcome to Leaving Hillsong. My name's Tanya, and this is a flashback to the 80s. My guest today is Paul Castle Dine, or PCD as he's known around the traps, and we've been exchanging banter for a few months, and he's one of the original Hills Christian Life Centre guys. So I was running a little bit late and I thought we were going to be podless today. But then we kind of came to this arrangement a little bit late in the afternoon. So this pod is a little bit late, even a little bit later than promised. But here we are. Haven't even got a name for this one yet. We'll get there. And I'm not even going to put an outro because, well, you'll see how this ends, but it's just one ongoing conversation. And part 2 will be out as soon as possible. But I wanted to get this out to you before another day went past. I told everyone it'd be out about 7 o'clock, so, somewhere it's 7 o'clock at night. In Australia it's 7 in the morning. Now PCD and me have been chatting for a while, so it's pretty rapid fire, this chat. And it's a really important one too. We go way, way back to maybe even 1984. So grab those snacks and kick back. Settle on in for part 1 of yet to be named interview with Mr. Paul Castle Dine. That's okay. That's cool. But does it record like that? I don't know if it records like that.
How's my background? Is that all right? Or do I need
Well, I mean, it's great if you're 11. It's cute. It's cute. You know what I mean? If you want to sleep in your big car bed and have all glow in the dark stickers on the ceiling.
Where's my hat? I want to wear my hat to bed.
You've got your hat on. So Paul.
Tanya.
PCG.
The divine Miss Levine.
Mr. Paul Castle Dine, welcome to Leaving Hillsong. Thank you so much. At a little bit of short notice, we decided we'd do what we've discussed, drag you on this show. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Look, we were just talking about podcast, and you said that you'd missed a couple of episodes, that you'd started listening about 18 months ago. And
must have been about 18 months.
And that's what I was trying to remember. Like, how did we collide in your memory? How did this happen?
Well, I'm certain I remember you from church. So from when I used to go and hang out. And then
we'll get there.
Then I found the podcast and I was listening to it. I think I found it on Facebook. So, I hang around atheist circles. Actually, that's right. I got it through the good folks over at, I was a teenage fundamentalist. There was something leaving Hillsong over there, and I went, well, over there, and there's Tanya, and I'm like listening away. Yeah, that's how I found it. That's how
the most interesting people are referring it. It's interesting. And then we got in contact.
I think we just exchanging, little hearts on the posts on the Instagram. I think that facilitated that. And the next thing we knew, we were talking.
6 months ago?
Probably. So I think it was the way I remember it was just before I moved to the nation's capital. So when I moved down here in December, was it? Or November, maybe?
Yep.
November, I handed the keys over for my place on Short Street, and off I went. And so for the first time in 25 years, I've had no permanent address in Sydney that doesn't have a postcode to 2010. So it's all been a bit.
Okay.
And now we talk on the phone.
Yeah, you were living sort of 5-10 minutes away, and now you're 3 hours away in Canberra, but you're serving our nation in the Department of IT, I think, something.
Yeah, something like
good.
that. Yeah.
Defending us.
The one thing I
No.
do well.
Nothing further to discuss there. High security. So let's go. What, honey? Are you all right with your spaceship there? Are you okay? You got a spaceship background.
So yeah. So those are just joining up just prior to the mic being switched on. I was vilified by Tanya saying that, asked if I wore, Batman pajamas to bed and slept in a truck.
Fine.
I think, wasn't it? And I'm 7 years old. It was a great background. So I'll change it to something for the desk.
Right. Where do I start scratching at the PCD iceberg here? Do you want to tell us a little Australian story of whoever and how you wound up in the Hills Christian Life Centre and Powerhouse Youth? How did you find yourself there?
So I joined youth. So I did Powerhouse, what was it called then? Hills Christian Life Centre. So my first encounter with the folks at Hillsong, or Hills Christian Life Centre as it was in those days, was in 1985. And I used to have a job at the Parramatta Mcdonalds there at the Westfields. And the street mission used to occur every Friday night. So I think it was about third or fourth street mission. These people appeared with a tambourine and they're standing in a circle. And I think Darko was there playing his guitar. And, so I just looked down, sort of going, what's going on there? A bit weird. And then I went down and, sort of got a bit closer and hung around. And I think I was out with a girl that one Friday night. And I said, here, come on, let's have a look. I said, you watch. I guarantee you, if I go down there and stand there, someone will come and talk to me within the first 3 minutes, type thing. And sure as hell, that's exactly what happened. So down I went. So I won that $5 bet. And before I knew it, I was, swept. So I was going.
Nah, come on. What did they say to you? What did it? Because it was an exclusive club back in the day. There's only 300-400 people.
There was about 200 when I joined, as I recall.
Wow.
Yeah. They'd only just moved into the place on Hudson, up the Windsor Road past Tony Packard's. They'd only just moved into that place. So I don't know where they were before that.
And what did it resonate with you as 16?
Let me think. So I would have been 16, yeah. Yeah, actually, so it must be 1985, maybe even late 1984. Can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But what did it resonate with me? I don't know. I that's a real hard one. I think other than, I think, I'd say that I was just as vulnerable as any other teenager.
What was home like? A non-Christian home then, I'm guessing.
Non-Christian home, yep. Not fiercely atheist or anything like that. There was just God got talked about, but not any specific God. And I remember, years prior to that, when I was just 10, 12, when I was 12 years old, I decided that we had scripture in school. I decided I didn't want to attend this anymore. And I articulated that as my time will be better spent in the library because I did not believe in God. And you could have heard, it was almost like you could have had a pin drop. Everyone would go, this 12-year-old. And even my classmates were like, you can't say that. You shouldn't say that. And then, the librarian was having none of it. My parents backed me up, completely backed me up. And they said, no, you don't have to have the scripture if you don't want to. It required a note. The librarian, Mrs. Dre, I remember gave me a lecture about it. She said, how'd you know me from? Her daughter used to babysit us when we were kids. She'd known me from before I'd started school, and I was such a nice young man. The library was not a place just to hang out because you didn't believe in God. So I had to go and sit at the headmaster's, out the front of the headmaster. No one would have. So I sat out in the front of the headmaster's office, and he would come out and say, you haven't done anything wrong. And then he'd rub me on the shoulders and rub me up and down the back and pat me on the butt. Anyway, all that stuff. Because he was a bit like that. But he would go out of his way and say, you haven't done anything wrong. So, so it was totally.
You were the only one?
I was the only one. That's right. I was the only
I would have thought the library is exactly the place where you hang out when you don't want to hear about a particular point of view.
Yeah, you would think so. I think 12-year-olds exerting. It was a fairly. It would have been 1970,
Oh,
maybe 70. No, 78.
no,
No.
old people. No one cares which 70s it was. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you last
I don't
century.
think anyone was used to kids saying that they didn't believe in God, and so yeah, that was really the first time. And even when I went to Hillsong, look, Mum had cancer. That's the thing. That's the thing I think that made me particularly vulnerable. And as a family, we didn't really know how to talk about that. It was not tact. It was not talked about. It was like the elephant in the room. And she had it for many, many years. Sadly, six or 7 years. She hung on. Eventually passing away when I was, well, maybe 8 years, when I was 22. But I think that was the thing for me as a kid. Talking to you about it now, I think, yeah, that's actually a fairly straightforward answer. So that was my in.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there was something about, the conviction I remember, because there was a young person named Jenny, and I can't remember her last name, but she's the one that brought me in, and she followed me up. Now I know why. There was a whole structure behind it, right? So she followed me up, called me at home, made sure I had a lift to get to church that weekend or whatever it was, and the follow up and all of that was done really, really well, I think, in those days. Valda and John, I think, used to do it. Can't remember their names. Yeah, so that was how I slipped into Hillsong at the age of must have been 15, maybe even 14. Yeah.
You'd almost it was a different level of sincerity is what I'm going to throw at you. Then you wouldn't. I mean, yes, there was a structure, but it didn't feel sinister and premeditated.
It didn't feel forced. Yeah,
it might have been, but
well, you have to look at sometimes these systems, road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So you've got all these people, they're well intended, and they've got they're good people, so far as good people go, and but the outcome is it's just to trap you in, to close the doors behind you once you've walked into the joint. And that's typical of these types of organizations, right? But as a 14 or 15-year-old, I had no idea and what 14 or 15-year-old does. So I went from being what looked to be the outspoken atheist in the family to suddenly being the outspoken Pentecostal teen, and we all know how nauseous those people are. Yeah.
I mean, that's a big stand to take in the family and not feel embarrassed or anything as a teenager.
Not at all. I knew no shame.
How did they receive it? Your folks?
My parents did, yeah. They did not take to that very well at all. I think that really frightened them, because there was something so strange about, those happy clappy people. We have all been exposed to it, and we all experience it, but I think we forget about it. So it's hard for people like us to have, and most people listening, to have that genuinely objective view of what a Pentecostal church looks like from the outside, or what religious people, how people that are Bible bashers, if you like, come across, because we've all been on the inside, so our view is kind of skewed. But no, they did not take well to that. And I remember Mum, she went and met with Pastor Brian, and she went, I've been to see Pastor Brian. I was horrified. I was mortified, right?
Wow, what happened? What?
She wanted to find out more about this church. What was it about? What did they believe? What, all this stuff. So she met with Brian. She met with Mike Smith. She met with Pat Mesiti. But she liked Michael. That was it. She didn't like Brian.
Okay.
Brian, she didn't like, and she didn't like his mustache either. She said, "Oh, it's still got it." So it's like he's got food in it or something. Funny. Yeah. So she went and found it. She went and wanted to know all about it. I didn't half do things, right?
No.
So she wanted to know all about it.
So it wasn't to necessarily restrict you from going, but just to find out.
Yeah, exactly. She would never have. She wouldn't have put a foot down in that regard. Yeah. She would have. Yeah.
And you were horrified. Was there any repercussions for you or anything at church?
No, not at all. No, in actual fact, I think no. That was No, there were no repercussions at all. But because I was young, and I don't say this with any tickets on myself, but because I was in my teens, I think I was one of those bus teenagers that just especially good looking and sailed through without pimples and all of that stuff.
Okay.
Tall, good looking, cut from the same quilt, so to speak, as very a Richard Wiley type, I think we'd say. It wasn't long before I was, like I've been invited to do the Sunday morning worship. So that off in the mornings, I was up on the stage and, all that stuff. And then, I think I'd been there 6 months when PCD Ministries was invented. That was hilarious.
So your own, so PCD being your, what's the word? Acronym? Initials.
Nickname and initials.
PCD Ministries. Tell me, what was that about?
PCD Ministries was at the time I'd started to date this girl named Jenny Westcott. And unbeknownst, Jenny's a beautiful girl. And even to this day, we are friends. She's married to an American television evangelist now. They just moved from Oklahoma. They're just outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay. Anyway, what I didn't realize was Jenny was one of 4 girls, but Westcott, and any old Pentecostals listening will recognize that name. She was the daughter of Harry Westcott, who was the first person in Australia to preach prosperity doctrine, and got thoroughly, beaten up about it. Even Brian from the pulpit would mention sharing gospels and prosperity doctrine. And anyway, so he had vision ministry. So I found myself in the middle of all that because that was very much a family enterprise, and there would be Harry and his wife, and there would be their first daughter and the husband, second daughter, husband, third daughter, Jenny, and nice looking boyfriend, and then so it was a whole shebang. So I just found myself being pushed, if you like, to the top of the pecking order, if that's what it's called. Yeah, which I think is where I got my first troubles, really, with where I start to run into troubles with CLC leadership, because I had one foot in that camp over there with Westcott's and Vision Ministries, and I had one foot in Hills Christian Life Centre, and that wasn't going too well. That didn't work out too well.
What happened?
Well, I wound up enrolling in the Bible College of Vision with Harry, right, over at Vision Ministries, and that was the same year that they were launching I think it was the same year. It was the first year for the Hillsong College, or whatever it was called back then. So they had this, little Bible school was starting up type thing. And a good friend of mine named Greg, inseparable at church, but we were going to go to Vision together. And Brian went and talked actively, I found out years later, actively sought out to talk Greg out of going to Vision. It was bad enough we're losing Paul. So Greg went over and was among the first, students of the Hillsong College, I guess, become now.
Power Ministry? Was it Power Ministry School?
May have been that. That.
Internet, IIC.
It was something like that. But it was interesting. Greg told me years later that Brian had said, but don't talk Paul. That's the hill find out the hard way. So that was really quite, that was big.
We call that triangulation.
Yes.
So that's simply where you undermine and play people off each other again.
Right, and undermine, play them off against each other, and then
it's your 101 narcissist stuff.
It is, isn't it? Manipulation, trying to control the social relationships between people and how they interact. If two people are too close, it's not good.
No,
not good. You can't have them relying on each other. So it went on from there. Of course, was I fully aware? I happen to be homosexual. And
who says that anymore? Who says homosexual? Sorry, I don't know who says I happen to be like your Oscar Wilde. I also happen to be
gay. I'm gay.
Righto.
There's pink paint. Gay as a box of kittens at Christmas. So what happened was, so I knew this. I knew it from about the time I started hitting puberty, which makes sense, right? You start to evolve as a sexual being. You start to exist before you're more or less asexual. Puberty, is the harbinger or the herald, one of the two, into that particular phase of your life. But I knew that I was attracted to guys, and I certainly knew that I was, gay by the time I joined Hillsong. And of course, very quickly explained that away as being just something I was going through, or at worst, something to do with the devil. My father was a Freemason, all this stuff, So I
Have you
managed to
renounced that?
Freemasonry.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I
You haven't
haven't.
renounced
I'm under
that curse over your life?
I'm under that curse.
Still.
Yeah. Not good.
Okay. It's an ancestral curse. We can look it up in Leviticus if you want.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's fine. I've got my Bible around here somewhere.
We can always Google it. But yeah, no, it doesn't say Freemason specifically, but I do remember that you get demons from your grandfather or something if
That's
he was.
right.
Yes.
Yep. And of course my father they were and my grandfather were senior Masons as well, so it didn't go down all that well with the. I know Barry Smith came and told me all about the evils of that, and the bank card. Thank goodness I didn't have.
Oh yes. Are you a Freemason? Or can you tell us? Are you allowed to tell us? Is it
Well, I don't think you are you? I don't.
No, are you? I'm not. They don't let Jews in. I don't think they let Jews in.
Well, I'm not you.
No, but so I can't be one, obviously, female. But no.
Are you saying that because I got my hat on inside? You are. I'm so sorry.
He's not going to tell us because they cut out your tongue. I read about online. If you
tell yes, they cut out your tongue.
Yeah, because Lucifer's the head of the Freemasons.
Yes, correct.
So,
the angel of light.
Is that true?
Well, I don't know I don't believe any of it's true. Of the angel of light or Lucifer.
No, that there's Freemasons actually, like when you get to like top Freemason level, the boss is actually Lucifer.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I
don't know if that was yet another Christian conspiracy or.
Yeah, there's a lot of loose truth getting around about the Freemasons.
It's not right.
Yeah.
It's not right at all.
I think there's probably a couple of questions to be asked about that organization, but is it headed by Lucifer? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say no. I don't think so. Yeah.
Laugh away. So
they sucked me right in, and I was. They open arms. They welcomed me. They loved me. They gave me the one thing no one should ever do, which is hand me a live microphone. Don't do it. People will tell you, don't do it. I was having a great time. PCD Ministries, on stage with Richard Roberts when he came out here, because Harry brought all the famous people out to preach. It was a big tent crusade at Wentworth Park in Sydney, and all this stuff. I was sitting pretty, loved it.
So are you flitting back and forth between Hills and Harry?
So Harry was during the week, of course, college. Jenny was a full-time girlfriend. Lovely, lovely, lovely girl. But I was, of course, I was Hillsong twice on Sundays, Saturday, Friday night, street mission, Tuesday night, home fellowship. There's some weird things go on at home fellowship. That's another thing I think.
Like what?
You could probably
understand. The weird things. What kind of weird things?
The prayer chair, for example. The prayer chair was always a bit weird. My home fellowship leaders were lovely people, but gosh, they were a bit like Stepford. She's a bit of a Stepford wife, I think. It was almost like I expected them to have the people that you wouldn't be surprised if there were like bodies in the basement or something. There's just some weird things going on in my fellowship now I think back of it. And it was, I guess, you take these people that just happen to live around each other and throw them together. It's like, I don't know. It was just a bit weird.
Yeah, funny you should say that. A friend of mine says it's like getting any group of people from a shopping centre and putting a rope around them. That's as much as why would you leave your kids in the care of just these random people?
It's a good question, don't you think? It's a good question, but it's a very useful vehicle for keeping your people under control. I can understand from a control, perspective, making sure that there are no heretical doctrines creeping in. All right. But then again, some of the things that were said in the home churches or the fellowship were just so off the wall from a theological point of view, or from even from a doctrinal point of view, for the crazy, bat excrement that the Pentecostals believe. You know, it's extreme. Then you'd add some of it. You know, it was very weird. So it all came to an end at one stage, and the reason it came to an end was around what people perceived as a doctrinal impurity in me or something like that. Anyone was going outside, so I'd get asked to go and speak at youth groups, through my connections with Harry and through Bible college. That was all. I remember Donna one day pulling me aside and saying, "You've got to, keep your You've got to keep your light under a bushel in this regards. No one, it's no superstars. Everybody's equal, and you're doing all this stuff outside of our church, and how do we check that? And you've just got to play it really. I'm excited for the opportunities for you, Paul, but you've got to play it down." And then I don't know, something happened, and I can't remember what it was, but I just decided, bugger this. I'm going to tell them I'm having male, same-sex attraction thoughts. So I went and saw Mike Murphy. So I thought.
Wait, did you choose Mike?
No, actually, I went and I saw. I think I wanted to give Donna a run for her money, because her particular brand of herbalism always rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, I don't care if I see you sweeping the church every Sunday night after church, because you're talking about it every Saturday night at youth, right? About how holy you are because you sweep the church. Anyway, so I went and told her, and she went a shade of white, and she stood up, and she was out that door so fast. And she came back with Mike and sort of pushed him in the room. And I'll leave you two to it, and closed the door, and that was that.
Oh, that's appropriate. That's an appropriate response, I guess.
Mike's about to pray.
Well, I got sent to Mike for having a boyfriend and stuff. I mean, my mother thought she'd sent me along that he'd sort that out. He was very nice. What was your situation like?
Yeah, it was very Mike's very Mike, right? Very, very.
Mike Murphy was the senior assistant associate pastor for I think 11 years. So basically Brian's right-hand man at the get-go.
Yep.
And a handsome Irish, blue-eyed,
dressed very, very well. Always screamed money. He's the way he dressed screamed money, yeah, for sure. And he was very reserved.
Well, I mean, he went on to become a business building, develop the business building growth of churches. He sort of eventually leaves, goes to start a church 40 minutes away, just for people outside of Sydney, and did that for a whole bunch of years, and started taking credit for the raising up and sending out of Scott Morrison, Prime Minister, because they were who became Prime Minister, they were in the same community. And Scott Morrison started going to his church. Mike has since left to just focus on money and business. So it's interesting that you spotted it from day one. I just thought, he seems nice. He won't yell at me.
No, he got sort of lumbered with my confession, and he was. I remember he was quite stiff about it, in almost like oh my God, what do I do? what do I do? He's like, well, we just need to pray about this, And I'm going, okay. He's going, I want you to pray every morning. I want you to pray every night, and I'm going to have a chat with the other leaders. We'll find out if it's a demon or if it's just just teenagers or whatever. Yeah. And so I don't know what I intended. I don't remember well enough to know what I intended to achieve from all that. But I felt that my position in church had been on the slide for a little while. And for some reason, that was kind of important to me. I think Jenny had just left me after about 3 years or 2.5 years. And next day she was engaged to this American bloke. Yeah, so I don't know why. But from that point on, everything changed. Everything changed. So looking back now, I'd say obviously people have talked, right? They've talked amongst themselves, which of course this is what we good Christians do, right? People walk up to you and they go, brother, I'm going to tell you something, because because we love this person, and in Christ's compassion we're going to sort out and then the most extraordinary confidences are all thrown out the window,
Well, we are one in the body. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of that would have happened, and of course, homosexuality in the 80s. You cannot talk about any aspect of same-sex attraction in the 80s without talking about AIDS and HIV.
Well, it was also illegal. It was only not illegal from what, 84 in New South Wales?
That's right.
In our state?
Yeah, that's right. So it had been legalized. Yep. So it was legal by this time, but it was still very fresh for people. And the Mardi Gras was still like, what a pack of weirdos, right? It's not what it is today, and certainly not what it was. It came a long way very quickly.
To burst out of that closet into.
It's the height of the AIDS epidemic. Also, when I eventually came out, it was also the height of the police harassment of the gay community in New South Wales, and especially in Sydney. And people and the bashings that would go on at beats. Yeah, recently we had someone convicted, right, for what was a 23-year-old murder of a gay man that got pushed off the rocks at Manly or something. Southhead got pushed off Southhead. So, no, Northhead, one of the two, something like that. Yeah, so it was really, really quite an interesting time to come out. On my first day in a gay bar, second day in a gay bar, I saw a fight broke out because somebody walked in who was HIV positive, and was not welcome by the other gay men in the bar because, well, in those days, we forget all this stuff, Tanya. We forget that people didn't know. Oh, you can get it from a teacup. We make that joke nowadays. Well, not joke, but people will understand the reference. There was a time when you didn't know that you couldn't get it from a teacup.
We had, not everyone's old like us too. We had some of the worst, most counterproductive health promotion messaging in Australia that terrorized. You were saying to me not long ago that it might have served you a bit of good, but it really put into everybody, and then that just skyrocketed homophobia. I mean, back in the days of throwing bottles out windows at people, and that was normal. And I guess for us to find out all those years later that the police not only condoned, turned a blind eye, they actively participated and got in cars to with the express purpose of going to beat gay people up on a Saturday night. And there's over 100 murders. I'm sorry, 100 deaths or disappearances that have gone unexplained, uninvestigated.
Yeah. Well, none of that was news to gay people. We all knew it. We all knew it at the time. But it's interesting. We should talk about the health messaging, because I think we have very different takes on that. And I admit that the Grim Reaper ads is what we're talking about. The Grim Reaper ads, while they probably they fueled the sense of fear in the greater community. Right? They didn't really do much to educate. What they did do was put a sense of fear. But so I'm 55 this year, and the number of men that are my age, like 10 years either side, there's a dip in our demographics, right? Because most men my age, gay men my age, are either dead or HIV positive, and there's a dent. It's like a dent in the population when you look at the age distribution across gay men in Australia. You'll see, so you got 18, 19, 20. If it's a graph like that, it'll go down, because all the other ones are all dead now, just from old age. My point is that health campaign, the Grim Reaper, scared the hell out of me, and kept me. Made sure I had safe sex. And that was it, or safer sex. And it scared the hell out of me. So it achieved an end by keeping me alive and preserving my health. But yes, it also, it didn't help in terms of broader community acceptance and demonizing gay people and things like that.
Drups said to me, and Drups is in his 30s, and he was like, wow, I thought our health promotion was bad at the time. It's the most famous one was, an image of the Grim Reaper with a bowling ball, just, knocking down kids and random people, anyone, because that was the message. It could happen to anyone at any time.
It could happen to anyone. Yeah.
And that seemed to authorize and underpin a lot of bad behavior.
Exactly. A lot.
After
And,
that.
all the people at the other end of the bowling alley, like standing as the skillets or whatever they're called, they were all, it was a good diverse cross. There was a woman with a baby, there was a man, there was a woman, an old woman, a young woman, the whole thing. Someone walking their dog. So, but it didn't target gay people at all. But the message was clear. Like, AIDS was very much you can't talk about homosexuality in the 80s without AIDS. Yeah.
And that continued for quite some time. Do you remember the church's take on it?
So AIDS, yes, I remember it really, really well. So it was in church that I met Anthony Van Brown, of course.
Anthony Van Brown, hello.
Yes, hello, Anthony. A dear, lovely, lovely man, and somebody who I've known socially as an adult now for many years, and like a deserving recipient of the Order of Australia, and a great ambassador for people that, with an atheist, I forget that there are people that want to have a conversation, that want to stay within the Christian faith, regardless of their sexuality, right? And so Anthony's a great reminder to me to respect that, because I have no trouble respecting it with him. So it sort of tempers my militant atheism on occasion. Yeah, I met Anthony, through the church there, and the message always was, it would be a story. Brian, I remember this is Brian's favorite story. I heard him tell it 3 times, about somebody who was a member of the church, but was a member of the entertainment industry in film and television, and got seduced by all of that, stopped going to church, started a relationship with 100 men or something, and now of course he has AIDS, and like he deserved it. That's the natural outworking of just living your life, as a gay man. Yeah, with a very explicit warning, not to dabble, because it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope, he used to say.
And you've got to wonder if that was even a true story now, looking back.
I doubt it.
They were so convenient, some of these stories. Yeah.
They lie about everything. These people lie and lie and lie and lie. They lie so much that they don't even know that they're lying.
Well, do you know where it hit me? Oh, I saw it on accountability. Pat Mesiti, not long ago, a few months ago, standing there saying, look, because what had happened was Pat had gone to that hideous, worst form of exploitative evangelist profiteer that you could imagine, decided he'd take himself to the Northern Territory to help Indigenous people because they're broken and he could fix them. It turns out that he was not able to rent a hall with the Uniting Church. And then the next week, because they wouldn't put up with him, and he's just what's the word, like blatant, unadulterated money grab. And a week later, he saw that they were renting a hall for Pride Month or something. Oh. And he was so confused because he had offered to pay for that hall, so he didn't understand. And he stood up there and he said, he goes, look, I've got gay friends. Okay, I've got gay friends. And I don't mind what they do in their lifestyle. And that's when it, that's the moment I knew. These people just lie, because we know Pat doesn't have friends.
He doesn't have friends. He certainly doesn't have gay friends.
And we would see them on Instagram. They'd all be priced and rented out and refurbished and reused. And so, sorry, it's just a thing that's been, every time you find out something new and you think, wow, I've been really naive all this time. I wonder who else is doing it. And that's, so I don't know that Brian knows anybody who had a relationship with 100 men in 1985. Do you want a break? No. You're coughing. You all right?
Yeah, I do beg your pardon. Could we just stop for a minute and get some water?